Good afternoon, everyone. We're ready to get going again. Welcome to the Budget and Tax Committee, February 15th, public hearing. We've got 6 bills today. Let me remind everyone, we do have a mask policy, which you all are doing great with, but even when you come up to speak, you need to still leave your mask on over your mouth and nose. Appreciate your accommodating us with that. Today, the 6 bills will go in this order. Senate Bill 474, 408, 434, 443, 448, and 488. So we're going to begin today. Everybody has, of course, the sponsor will take the time that they need, and their witnesses will have 2.5 minutes. And we'll begin with Senator Edwards, 474, Edwards and Quarterman. And very impressive PowerPoint, I understand, coming along. Yeah. He will not confirm or deny whether or not Senator Serafini had anything to do with it.
He left us all the details, Mr. Chairman. Only ours won't be quite as long as his. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, I have a group then to come up when we're done here. Thank you for taking us first. We have some people here that traveled a long distance to get here, to put their 2 cents worth in on this bill. About 2 years ago, there was a bill in to do away with the coal tax credit that we had in Western Maryland. There have been some other issues related to basically stopping economic development in our part of the woods, which has had a tremendous impact on people who live in the 3 counties of Western Maryland. At that time, it was a House bill, and a person in the House said, we want to do what we can to help you out. Let's turn the bill into a task force, what they did. So we put together an economic development task force for Western Maryland. Now, each of you should have a copy of this report. We sent it out. I'm sure it'll be leisure reading for you, so take your time and absorb all of it when you have that opportunity. I'm going to speak as quick as I can. I asked my colleague to speak. He was not on the task force, but he followed it very closely because he represents the eastern part of Washington County, and the bill deals with the 3 Western Maryland counties. Task force, if you look in the report, was made up of a couple elected officials, both state and local, but a lot of citizenry input, some input from TEDCO and the Department of Commerce. We're also on the task force. So we had a wide view of people and thought processes on what to do. I would tell you, Mr. Chairman, we came up with 6 or 7 bills that are in. Most of them are going to come here, all but maybe one. And so we hope you'll look favorable on these so the 3 counties can get out of their economic doldrums, which is what you see here on the screen. When we get to it, we'll point out why this is needed. Senate Bill 474 is Economic Development, Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Board and Fund Establishment. So what this bill does, it sets up a Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Board made up of 11 people, 3 commissioners from each county, 1 from each county rather, total of 3 commissioners. A representative of an economic development organization in each county appointed by the commissioners of that county. A representative from the Chamber of Commerce from each county. A member of the Maryland Municipal League appointed by the executive director of the league. And a person appointed from the Department of Commerce who will chair the board. So we have a lot of overlooking here. And this board is, I'll get to in a second, but the fund is to provide a grant or a loan for capital infrastructure projects and business development projects to improve conditions in the region. We have what's called a Tri-County Council, which is made up of the 3 counties. They have a board and representatives from each county. Do a tremendous job, been doing it for over 40 years. They will staff the board and take care of all that, so the board doesn't have to pay someone a whole lot of money to do that. The fund would provide in-state income earned and investment fund. And what we're looking for here is a $20 million per year for 5 years. It's a 5-year program, be $20 million a year. Now, before everybody goes, you know, small part of the state, why do you need that? Well, we think we need it. We got lists from all 3 counties of what they could do, and they far exceed this amount of money. And a lot of this would be used to match projects, which is, you take a small town doing a sewage or water project for economic development, even if it's $1 million, they have a hard time finding that amount of money to put in to make a match. This program would be able to do that to help them out. It's a rollover, so if they don't use it all in 1 year, it rolls over to the next year. And when you talk about the 3 counties, put them together and say it's 1 county, there's between 230 and 250,000 people, which is equal to about a mid-sized county in the state of Maryland. So it's not all going to little old Garrett or little old Allegheny or little old Washington. It's going to be spread out pretty thoroughly throughout. The comptroller shall account for the fund. The treasurer will hold the fund in accounts like the treasurer does now, as in a separate category. So any money derived from investments or income from that fund will go into the fund. So we have state government really controlling things, how it comes in, how it goes out. So it's not going to be hodgepodge, this and that and that. It's going to be very controlled, in my opinion, which I think is good. Now here's a very important part of this, which I think we should do for a lot more projects in the state. If it's anybody can apply, local governments, any other local entities, businesses, or any combination of can apply for capital infrastructure linked to economic development. But here's an important thing to remember. We think the locals, whoever it is, should have skin in the game. Because if you have skin in the game, you're going to really make sure that it's going to work, or it ain't going to look too good for you, a county, a municipality, or a private business, or whatever. So if they fit in this category, they have to come up with 20% matching funds to do this. If they're in a business development project, downtown revitalization, etc., it's a 10% match. The board will set up the criteria. The board shall monitor and track the progress of the projects. And if it's determined by the board that sufficient progress is not being made, they can reclaim the funds. The funding provided shall be used to supplement and not supplant any other funds. I'll go back to the water project I mentioned. We do have a water project program in the state, and you could apply for that. And if you got it based on the criteria that's in place, you can't come back and say, well, you got that, so therefore you can't spend this money on that. Well, this could be used as the local match part of it, because as I said, a lot of times they can't make that up. The board will present a report every year to the governor of the status of all projects, where they're at, how they're doing, and everything else. And that's to be presented by December 31st. Okay, my right hand here, you ready? Mm-hmm. I want to thank Kim for helping out, and she said I could do that. Because us 2 old people sitting up here aren't in this high-tech stuff, so she did most of it. She just kind of told her how to do it. So Victoria put it together. So if you look at the slides, this first one deals with total population of Western Maryland from 2010 to 2019. And as you can see, 2 of the 3 counties decreased in population, 1 increased, but very little. So overall, the population has declined versus the whole state, the state as a whole, where it increased. The next slide. I just did that one. What's it say? Let me get to there. Population growth by age. You can see that Western Maryland is aging. There's more people over 65, I believe it is, than under that. And you can see the ones going under the line, they're leaving the area. So we're losing population in the portion of the population that works in the work skill groups, which means we're losing students. And they're all going that direction in the 3 counties, okay? This one just says it's a negative employment, as I mentioned, because you don't have the population there to get employed. Residents leave to find jobs. Businesses have difficulty finding people to work. And demand drops in local businesses because they don't want to build a business with population declining and can't sell their goods. Percent change in private employment. You can see the state went up 12.1%. Garrett went up 7.3%, Allegheny 0.7%, and Washington 4.2%, for a total for the Western Maryland's 3.6%, which is way under what the state's doing. Okay. This one is a percent change in total number of businesses. State grew 3.7%. Western Maryland, the 3 counties, a minus 3.5%, which is a considerable difference when you look at the rest of the state. The next one is percent change in number of businesses employing fewer than 5 employees. You can see the state went up 2.2%. Western Maryland dropped 7.9%. That small businesses aren't being created because the population is not there and people are leaving. The next one is proportion of establishments age 5 or fewer years from 210 to 218. As you can see, Western Maryland is the bottom line, goes down way more than the state line. Is that it? That is. That's it. So I hope we had a good go with our first kind of approach like this. But I'll wrap my part up here real quick, Mr. Chairman. Garrett County just put out a report that they're looking to consolidate some schools because we're losing a lot of student population. And if they do this, what they're talking about, they're going to close about 3 or 4 schools. Excuse me. We do have 2 programs in the state that may be similar. So you say, well, you're starting something. Well, we got what's called Bernie. You people who live in Baltimore in that area know what Bernie is better than I do. But over the years, we put $12 million a year in. Last year, I think we cut it to 9. I think this year they're putting it back up to 12. And then we have NED, which is a similar program, and I'm not totally sure what it does, and I'm not totally sure the amount of money that goes in it. But these are 2 kind of similar programs that help those areas of the state. NED's the Washington area, Bernie's the Baltimore area. So we're helping out them economically. So all we're asking for is to, we think this will get us out of our doldrums. We're hopeful it is. This is a pilot program, Mr. Chairman. And if it works, which we think it will work, because all the controls we have on it, that other parts of the state might jump on and do their own pilot program and get it through. With that, I'll ask my colleague from Washington County if he would comment.
Thank you, and thank everyone for the opportunity here today, and I appreciate the great senator here from Mountain, Maryland, his expertise and commitment to this task force over the last 2 years, along with the minority leader in the House, and the 2 of them chair of this committee. He said it there at the beginning, quite simply, our economies continue to struggle in Western Maryland, particularly the 3 western counties. District 1 and District 2 sit at the crossroads of 70 and 81, and we continue to compete with not only Pennsylvania to our north and West Virginia to our south, southwest. It's no secret when you look at Jefferson and Berkeley County, they're 2 of the fastest growing economies in West Virginia. And to the north, just above the Mason-Dixon line, Franklin County They have a variety of incentives, revitalization tax assistance, trade zones, tax credits, and things of that nature that have really incentivized those areas that have brought much more prosperous opportunities. In West Virginia, when Procter & Gamble looked to open up their plant there a few years ago, it was down to Washington County and Berkeley and Jefferson. And they went to West Virginia for a variety of those reasons. And we're just looking for, quite simply, the opportunity to be able to compete with some of these other jurisdictions. In Washington County, where I sit, we're about 12 miles from border to border. It's about 5 or 6 miles in each direction. In Allegheny County, in some portions, it's even smaller. And so it's a real impact when we have those neighboring competing districts that we just aren't able to compete with. So this is the first of many bills, as the senator had laid out, which we believe that will help move our economies in the right direction. Because quite simply, again, we're looking for those opportunities to strengthen these three most western counties, which in turn we believe will not only strengthen those counties, but also the entire state and make us all better. So again, I appreciate the senator's commitment to this, and I thank you, the committee, for hearing our concerns today, and look forward to working with everyone here going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. This is the most expensive one of the bills. There are others that cost nothing or very little, and some of them actually are kind of a statewide approach. And before I forget, Mr. Chairman, we have an amendment adopted, depending on the outcome of some conversations or where we might go, put it that way, because it's drafted to take effect fiscal year 24. If we get a good response, we might want to change that to 23 to get it started. And with that, Mr. Chairman, we have a panel. I call them up on the timer. How you want to do it?
Is it Michelle Martz, Mary Clapsaddle, Jim Heinbaum, and Jake Shade?
Right.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's anybody else signed up, but this is our kind of group here, so.
Why don't they come up two at a time? Michelle Martz and
Michelle and
Mary
Mary.
Clapsaddle.
Just pull the mic over to that. Go ahead, Michelle.
Go ahead.
Yeah, clock's up there, so keep your eye on it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name's Michelle Martz, and I'm the president of UPMC Western Maryland Hospital in Cumberland, Maryland. Thanks for allowing me to speak with you today in support of Senate Bill 474. I also want to thank Senator Edwards and Corderman for sponsoring the legislation aimed at improving the economic conditions in Western Maryland. So at one time, our hospital, formerly the Western Maryland Health System, was one of several major employers in Allegheny County. But today, we're the largest employer in Allegheny County with 2,100 employees. And unfortunately, there's only one other large employer with over 1,000 employees in our county, and that's the Board of Education. So it's really the hospital and the Board of Education taking those two top spots. During my 32-year career, I've witnessed the negative impacts to our region resulting from the closures of industries like Kelly Springfield Tire Company, PPG Industries, Beaterlack Blanket Company, Bayliner Boat Company, and most recently in 2019, the Verso Paper Mill. These closures have resulted in the loss of thousands of good-paying jobs in Allegheny County. So the loss of these good-paying jobs then has had a significant negative impact on the financial health, obviously, of the families in our region. But they've also had a negative impact on the health and well-being as well of our community, since many times these unemployed individuals and their family members do not seek medical treatment because they no longer have health insurance. And of course, having health insurance is not a prerequisite for receiving health care services, but many individuals without insurance choose not to seek medical treatment or even preventive care, which often results in a long-term diminished quality of life for those individuals and their family, and then obviously drives up the total cost of care as their conditions may worsen. In fiscal year 21, our hospital provided $14 million in charity care, which that's free health care for patients who were unable to pay, $14 million in the year. We take great pride in caring for all of our patients regardless of their ability to pay. However, there are many individuals who just simply do not seek treatment because they do not have the financial means or health insurance, so they basically suffer in silence. The average household income in Allegheny County is approximately $46,000 per year, compared to $85,000 per year in Maryland. So I respectfully request the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee to give a favorable report to Senate Bill 474. Thank you for allowing me to testify today.
Thank you very much. Mary Clapsaddle.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr.
Good to see
Chairman.
you.
Good to see you too, members of the committee. This is, it's a brand-new day, I guess, right?
Right,
We're in
right.
person. I'm representing Frostburg State University today, and I'd like to thank Senators Edward and Quarterman for their diligent work in advocacy for Western Maryland. The several bills that you have coming to you this session are the result of 2 years of work from the Task Force on the Economic Future of Western Maryland. This bill is the #1 priority of all of the recommendations that came from the task force. Senate Bill 474 establishes a fund, as you have heard, which can be used for infrastructure projects and business development projects in Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington counties to spur new businesses and retain existing ones, create and retain jobs, encourage market development, increase wages, and increase state and local tax revenues. Unlike the statewide economic development programs, the decisions made on investments from this fund will be made by a board of Western Maryland experts and stakeholders. The proposals, the metrics, and the funding arrangements will reflect the economic reality of the region. It's been a long-standing policy of the state to provide additional financial assistance to the regions that need it. Think disparity grants. Think One Maryland and the Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties. Think enterprise zones. This fund is simply an extension of that policy and can do a world of good for Western Maryland. For these reasons, I urge a favorable report on 474.
Thank you very much. Questions for these witnesses? Thank you so much. Somebody go.
I'm ready. Oops, thank you.
Good to have you guys here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of Senate Bill 474. My name is Jim Heinbaum, currently serving as a county commissioner in Garrett County. But prior to being elected as a commissioner in 2014, I spent 17 years as the county's director of economic development. So this issue is near and dear to my heart. I also served on the task force that Senator Edwards chaired. You have my testimony. I won't read it to you, and I'll try not to be repetitive with what's already been said, but I would like to highlight a couple points. And one is the importance of this infrastructure fund. One of the big differences between the way economic development is done in a rural area and a metropolitan area is we don't have investors or businesses that are building buildings and putting in infrastructure on a speculative basis. So the difference is that there is a role for local government in building infrastructure, putting up spec buildings to try to encourage business growth and development. So that fund makes it very important. And Senator Edwards mentioned that there is a local match required, and he mentioned how that gives us kind of skin in the game. But I would also say that gives the state an opportunity to leverage its money with local resources. The other point I would make is that we, Garrett County, have a very good record of using state money and incentives wisely. Back when we had the One Maryland program and some other state incentives, during a 10-year period, we reduced our unemployment from the annual unemployment rate from almost 14% to less than 5%. And during that 10-year period, we created 3,000 new jobs. I say we, meaning the business community and the local government working with them. And that's on a base at the time of about 12,000 jobs. I think we led the state in job creation that year at about 17%. But the problem is, we've fallen behind from then, and part of that's a lack of infrastructure. Probably, Senator Edwards mentioned the issues we have with demographics, and that's very real. But one of the other big issues we have with the impediments to economic growth is infrastructure. So this fund will be we have several businesses that are ready to expand. All they need is a little incentive, a little extra help, and this bill would provide that help. So I'm hoping that you'll give this bill favorable consideration. And thanks again for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jake Shade, President of the County Commissioners in Allegheny County. I also got to serve with this task force for the last 2 years that Senator Edwards put together. And, you know, it wasn't just a bunch of people sitting in a room. We had public hearings and went out in the community. And the theme we hear again and again and again is we need growth and we need development. You know, Allegheny and Garrett were only 2 of the 3 jurisdictions in Maryland to lose population over the last census. And a lot of that's because of an older population. We have seen a lot of new people come into the area, a net inflow, at least in Allegheny County. But it's programs like this that have to come above and beyond what the state does for everyone else. And so that's really why we need this program. Tri-County Council has actually been around for 50 years. They're celebrating the anniversary. And they're actually buying a building in Cumberland because they make grants and loans to businesses, and then they get paid back a percentage. And it's been such a successful model that they've been around 50 years, and now they're actually going to have a full-time space of their own. So I don't want you to think that everything's bleak in Western Maryland, because it's not. There's a lot of opportunity. In the last 10 years, just in Allegheny County, you know, we didn't have any breweries or wineries or independent coffee shops. And those things are springing up. We have 3 breweries and 5 coffee shops across the county. Those are all younger people that they needed just a push. You know, the government had some involvement in all of that through a low interest loan or grant or helping with the building. But now it's a passion, and they're hiring people and they're reinvesting, and that's the kind of stuff that we need. So, you know, the industry that was there. Is probably not going to come back to that scale. So it has to be different, and it's going to be on a smaller scale. So these things that help these programs get the final mile is really what we need. You know, the buildings in downtown Cumberland, they don't make economic sense to rehab unless there's some sort of government involvement. And I hope that that's what this bill will allow us to do. Because there's a lot of potential. So thank you for your time today, and Senator, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions? Yes. Senator.
You already have an existing Tri-County Council, correct? And you would use these funds to work along with the USDA Rural Development Funds because you're in an area that you would qualify for a lot of those programs as well, correct?
The biggest source of funds for the Tri-County Council is the Appalachian Regional Commission. They get more or less an annual allocation of that money, but they're also eligible for grants from EDA, Rural Development, and other places.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure, because I know years ago in the Eastern Shore, we had to go through a SEDS process to be able then to be eligible for additional funding that would match what our fund was. So I just want to make sure that was what it was. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rosapap?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know I missed the beginning of your comment, Senator, and I apologize, so you may have covered this, but this is a question for all of you. One of the things we've seen across the country in the COVID crisis is people moving out of metropolitan areas to less congested areas. Now, whether that's going to stay the case or not, we'll see. But I'm curious, in terms of thinking about your economic development strategy here, where does that potential disruption caused by COVID fit into your thinking? What's going on? How do you see it?
Well, so this is the first year since 2007 that Allegheny County's, like our residential tax assessments exceeded the state. So that was a big deal for us. But the work from home piece is definitely going to be big for us. expanding the MARC train would be a game changer for Cumberland. It's things like that that we really need. I mean, Garrett County, I think their housing prices were #1 in the state this year.
What we're seeing is, with your point with the pandemic, that sales, particularly around Deep Creek Lake, are up. They're at an all-time high. A lot of people from metropolitan areas are buying houses in Garrett County. And we had hoped, with remote working and all that sort of thing, that would spark an increase in population. We have a little bit of anecdotal information that there's some of that, but it appears that most of the people that are buying homes and moving there are older people, and they still haven't relocated and made that their permanent home. So that's a challenge, and that's part of what we're, in our new economic development strategy, we're trying to target at-home businesses and smaller businesses. Our unemployment is actually pretty good right now, but our problem is wages. Our wages on average for any occupation are about 60% of the state average. What Commissioner Shade was talking about, our housing affordability index is the worst in the state. When you look at the cost of housing and wages, it's what we call now workforce housing, a lot of different names for it. We've got a couple initiatives going with that to try to make sure that we create housing that would allow people to move there and afford to live there with the jobs that we have. But it's a big challenge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Alford?
Chair. Thank you, Senator. So you mentioned a couple different industries and the MARC train expansion, but what's your vision for how to attract, or what industries would you see this $20 million a year kind of bringing to Western Maryland? Are there any things on the front burner?
We're investing very, very heavily in broadband with the idea that more people can work from home, and, it's easier said than done, though. I mean, we keep thinking that it's going to happen. I think we just have to be patient and continue to invest in that. One of the things, probably the best thing we have going is an outdoor lifestyle and the recreational opportunities that are available there. You combine that with tech businesses and broadband, and there's some synergy there. But the truth is, the weather's pretty bad. Some people don't. When I left this morning, it was 2 degrees. And so it's funny because when I was in economic development, the people in the county always said, "What an easy job. Who wouldn't want to live in Garrett County?" Everybody wants to live in Garrett County. Well, that's not the case always. So we have to find the people that are a good fit there, and we are seeing some of that. And it's changed the nature of the county too. As more affluent people move there, we're starting to see it's kind of changing the composition of the county, but it's happening very slowly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think the other thing is there's people who want to expand, but if to get a state project through our process, it takes up a couple of years sometimes to get to the top of the list, where a program like this, they can jump right in, because some companies don't want to wait. They just, you can't wait that long. And Mr. Chairman, you go to Allegheny County, you go to 3 breweries and drink, and go to the 5 coffee shops and sober up. I do think we have one other person on the sheet. I saw Julie McCoy to testify, if you will allow that.
Okay. I can see what you're going to be doing now in your retirement as the Economic Development Authority.
I would also tell you Commissioner Heinbaum is retired military, full bird colonel, and did a great job in the military. Go ahead.
Very good.
Thank you,
Clay?
and thank you for taking a minute to hear my testimony, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It's an honor to have your time and to be here. My name is Julie McCoy. I'm the Executive Director for the Allegheny County Chamber of Commerce. We currently have about 300 members in our membership, and of those members, about 291 are what we consider small businesses of 1 to 25 employees. These are not just investments being made in Maryland, but leaps of faith by people who have a talent and a dream to create, improve, mend, and grow in the mountains of Maryland. We do all we can as a business organization to provide workshops and information and make connections. And this includes resources to help with loans and grants, but often the paperwork coupled with the competitive nature of limited funding is a far reach. While the data collected and detailed in the economic and demographic report for the task force is grim for Allegheny County in particular, it offers a critical outline of why investment is gravely needed. Much care and attention has gone into that report and the plans for making these investments. And I won't go through those, but linking those investments to new or retained jobs and businesses, increased wages, or new state and local tax revenue is a win for both local and for the state. Additionally, the oversight and implementation of the fund is placed in the hands of local stakeholders that would adhere to the delineated metrics and guidelines, but understand at the very core what these projects would mean for the communities in which they live and work. An example of this can be found in Wheels Up, a small business just 1 year old that has seen growth and success in Cumberland. Mandela's business is one of our 291 members that we have at the Chamber. And it's important that I highlight for you what he faced, which was a lack of strong financial resources that were readily available to meet his needs. With excellent credit, both he and his wife having good jobs, and a great business plan, there was no collateral, and it required other sources of income for him to make his business work. A multitude of grants for new innovative ideas are just out of reach as well when we consider the enormous list of documents accompanied by a compelling narrative, putting them up against hundreds or thousands across the state. It's through a regionally based program such as the Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Fund that a business like Wheels Up and many that are not yet born would have a more reasonable chance at accessing a loan or grant, where a board of people who desire to see successful investments in their own backyard can help close that gap. With that, I request your favorable report on this request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for hearing our issues here.
Thank you, Senator. All right, moving on to Senate Bill 408.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, Senator Sarah Elfreth here to request a favorable report of Senate Bill 408. This legislation would create some foundational support for families in Maryland who suffer from and experience unparalleled hardships when it comes to a stillborn child. We define a stillborn child, but the IRS does, as 20 weeks gestation or older fetus that has passed before birth. There's tremendous grief challenges associated with a stillbirth, and also tremendous financial cost to experiencing a stillbirth. Costs for medical bills, preventative care, autopsy, funeral costs, therapeutic, and other mental health services, and additional leave time that is not covered by FMLA. These costs can add up over time to the extent of $8,000 to $9,000 per family that experiences hardship. This bill, Senate Bill 408, would create a $1,000 refundable tax credit per parent against the state income tax for parents who experience a stillbirth in their family. Again, under FMLA, eligible employees have the right to take unpaid leave to care for their own serious health conditions, among other purposes. However, stillbirth is not considered a serious health condition under that FMLA. Additionally, the IRS specifies that families who experience a stillbirth cannot claim their child as a dependent, as state or local law must treat the child as having been born alive with official documentation such as a birth certificate. This exclusion of parents or a parent of a stillborn child in federal protections and services adds an additional burden on families who experience this tragedy. Within the past decade, there has been a nationwide trend of other states to push and adopt a refundable stillborn tax provision for families who experience this tragedy. Additionally, with the advent of COVID-19, we've seen an increase in stillbirths across the nation. By June 2021, we saw an increase of about 50% of families experiencing stillbirth. And in response to these growing figures, states like Wisconsin and Minnesota have taken enormous strides in pursuing a $2,000 refundable stillborn tax credit for parents or a parent of a stillborn child. Other states are seriously considering similar actions. Arizona, Michigan, Indiana, Missouri, North Dakota, and Arkansas have all passed legislation that offer a range of tax credit support to families who experience a stillbirth. In Maryland, families who experience this tragedy are encouraged to obtain a Maryland certificate of birth resulting in stillbirth from the Division of Vital Records of MDH, but there's little support available to parents and parents of a stillborn child beyond MDH registration. By adopting this tax credit legislation, Maryland can join the growing number of states offering greater financial support and protections for families experiencing this tremendous hardship and loss. I'd like to thank Lauren, my constituent who brought this issue to my attention last year and has been a champion of supporting families who have experienced a stillbirth in our community across the state. And with that, Mr. Chair, I respectfully request a favorable report of Senate Bill 408. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's Ms. Cecil, is it?
Pettit.
What's that?
Pettit.
Pettit. Huh.
That was my maiden name, though.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. I don't.
My name is Lauren Pettit, and I am a resident of Anne Arundel County. Thank you for allowing me to share my story today, and thank you to Senator Elfreth for sponsoring this bill. July 17th, 2020 is a day I'll never forget. My husband, Max, and I had been married for a little over a year at that time, and we're thrilled that we would become parents in November. We had begun our nursery setup. We had read all the books about the new adventure we were about to embark on, and even had chosen a name for our daughter, Ava Pettit. On July 17th, our world was turned upside down. I alerted my physician that something felt off and I was possibly having contractions. Shortly after, we rushed to Anne Arundel Medical Center, and once we had arrived, we were given the worst news any parent would receive, that our daughter, Ava, had a 0% chance of making it through childbirth since we were only 20 weeks along. At that point, the nightmare of losing our first child began. We were admitted to the hospital and awaited the worst day of our lives. Caring nurses came by to counsel us on next steps. We were bombarded with information and decisions that had to be made rapidly. What would we like to do with our daughter Ava's remains? Could we afford to have a funeral? Would we like to attend a grieving parents support group? Would we like to be put in contact with a therapist? My husband and I were fortunate enough to be able to cremate our daughter and scatter her ashes under the most beautiful white poplar tree in our yard. We had a simple bronze plaque created to honor our daughter and to let her know that we loved her and that she was real. 500 Maryland families live this same nightmare every year, many of whom have to make difficult decisions due to finances that we did not have to make. Imagine having to decide that you cannot afford to take care of your child's remains due to the unexpected expenses associated with having a stillborn child, or that you could not afford crucial grief counseling due to the high price of therapy. With excellent insurance, our family still spent roughly $8,000 for medical, counseling, and funeral expenses. I implore you all to support Bill 408 so that no parent is faced with the decision of what they can and cannot afford when they are faced with the most heartbreaking moment of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and our sympathies for you and for your loss. Questions for the witness or the senator? Senator Salling.
I say the same. I'm very sorry you had to go through something like that. I had a family member that had to go through something like that, and it was very, it broke my heart. and I know it
Thank
broke
you.
your heart too. And my prayers are with you through these times. But Senator, this is the only question I got.
Mm-hmm.
This only covers stillborn, and only stillborn, and no, like, any abortion or anything like that?
Just stillborn as defined by the IRS.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Moving on to Senate Bill 434, Senator Riley.
Mr. Smith here? Oh, there you are. Come on up and join me. How are you? Great. And Mr. Smith, thank you for your service. We appreciate it very much. Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, a simple bill of reciprocity. It is well known and well established in our counties that there is a property tax credit in place for disabled or fallen law enforcement officers and rescue workers, including their survivors and co-inhabitants. This attitude of recognition of the sacrifice that these folks have made for their service and then after they passed is well recognized in Anne Arundel County, Calvert County. What county are you from, Mr. Smith?
Carroll County.
Carroll.
Carroll County.
Carroll County. And it's a recognition that they put themselves in harm's way for us. The issue is the artificial barrier that does not allow this tax credit to be transferred if there's a change of residence. My good friend, Mr. Smith, who I just met now, has moved from that desolate area called Carroll County to a beautiful area in Arnold, Maryland. But yet when he applies for his tax credit, it's not recognized. So this bill is enabling legislation to allow Anne Arundel County Council to address this issue and determine whether or not the tax credit can be transferred from county to county. Would request a favorable report on Bill 434. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Is this really about a transfer or just giving Anne Arundel County the same authority that Carroll County had already
Right,
gotten?
same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but it doesn't apply everywhere, sort of,
No,
from a transfer standpoint.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Mr. Smith, did you want to?
Yes, sir.
Say a
And
few
thanks.
words?
I appreciate
Yep,
meeting
yep.
you today. I've never done this before, so I'll try to figure out a way to figure this out. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. Came in Maryland State Trooper many years ago, and initially worked out at Annapolis Barracks in Anne Arundel County. Was then transferred to the Glen Burnie Barracks in Anne Arundel County. And while on duty, one night, 3 a.m. in the morning, got involved in a high-speed chase, got into a pretty bad accident, and injured my shoulder, cracked the bone in my lower back. And that happened while I was in Anne Arundel County. And at the time, I was living in Baltimore City, soon moved to Carroll County. And while in Carroll County, I found out about this bill, about the law, and Carroll County allowed me to have a tax credit, for my home. Moved to Annapolis, decided to retire. My daughter went to Naval Academy, so moved to Annapolis. And while living here, when I applied, I found out because I retired 20 years ago and lived in Anne Arundel County, I no longer qualified because I had to retire within 2 years of living in the county. So I think it's important because my entire law enforcement career was in Anne Arundel County. I protected the citizens of Anne Arundel County. I was a Maryland State Trooper, so I could have worked anywhere in the state, but I was stationed here in Anne Arundel County. I got in a high-speed chase in Anne Arundel County, was injured in Anne Arundel County, was forced to retire. I mean, I loved being one of Maryland's finest, didn't want to retire, was forced to retire, and did so, and then moved to Anne Arundel County. Now, when I look back on it, the injury happened many years ago, and I retired many years ago, but just 2 years ago, I had to have surgery on the same bone that I broke when I had to retire. From complications from the surgery, I almost didn't make it. Luckily, I did. But that happened so many years ago, and now I'm still here suffering with injuries, and not just myself, but others I know who are like me, who are suffering with these injuries their entire life. It's changed my entire life. It's changed the outcome of what I can and can't do. And all I'm asking is just to get the same type of benefit that someone else who retired just 2 years ago who live in the county get the same benefit that they're getting.
Did a great job.
Thank you.
Very clear. Senator Elfreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for bringing this up. Just looking at the fiscal note, it looks like only about 118 properties in Anne Arundel currently kind of fit into the current law that Anne Arundel is allowed.
Yes.
Do we have any idea, with Mr. Smith's exception, how many new folks might qualify under this?
We do not know that. All I know is we have one. Okay. That's the only one that's important to me today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very good. I understand we don't have any letters from either the delegation or the,
No, we usually have the hearing first, and then we'll go to the delegation.
okay, very good.
And I've requested a letter of support from the county executive, have not heard back from him yet. No rejection, so that's the good thing.
Very good. All right.
I have one more witness, Mr. Chair.
Oh, you have, what's that? You have another witness?
One more witness.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
Angelo?
I have that as not testifying.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your attention. Request a favorable report on the bill.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Senate Bill 443, Senator Jackson. You can bring up at least one of your panel if you want to. Get some people teed up.
Keep our spacing. Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, Senator Michael Jackson, District 27, on behalf of Senate Bill 443. Senate Bill 443 is a simple bill that establishes a tax credit for landlords who offer pet-friendly rental units. The bill would allow landlords to claim a $200 credit against their state income tax for each of their rental units, which they allow a renter to reside with a companion animal or pet. The credit would be capped at $2,000 or 10 units, and would not be able to be carried over into subsequent years. To claim the credit, landlords would not be permitted to charge a non-refundable fee for pets or institute breed or size restrictions. Landlords would be permitted to institute a limit on the number of companion animals or pets that the renter would be allowed to keep in the unit, and to charge a reasonable, refundable pet deposit. Additionally, this legislation will require the comptroller to keep a publicly available list of properties receiving credit in order to make it easier for renters to find units that would welcome their family pets. The program would sunset in 2 years and need to be reauthorized in 2024. The problem we're addressing here is to ensure that those dealing with housing insecurity do not have to part with their family pets. In a recent analysis of 1.1 million cat and dog surrenders spanning from January 2018 through September of 2020, housing issues were one of the most frequently cited reasons why people relinquish their pets to animal shelters. This legislation is a win-win, Mr. Chairman, for both landlords and tenants, as it incentivizes and hopefully increases pet-inclusive housing to allow vulnerable families in need, to keep their pets while providing landlords a tax benefit. And Mr. Chairman, I obviously looking for a favorable report here, and I am actually, I wish this were in place when I was in between one of the moves that my family and I had, where we sold our house rather quickly within 30 days, and we were without a home. So now where do you go? And we had a beautiful 86-pound Rottweiler, sweet as she could be, but wasn't sweet enough for our in-laws to say, bring her with you. And so in the line of work that I was in at the time, law enforcement, I could actually get a rental somewhere, park my cruiser there, and get have a rental in a development. But not many people were accommodating for an 86-pound Rottweiler. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we're asking for a favorable report, and we have a panel here, and we will try to, we will answer your questions. I'll try to answer the questions. They're more expert than I am. Thank you.
Very good. Hello.
Hello, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Hovermail on behalf of the Humane Rescue Alliance and our thousands of supporters in Maryland. I thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of Senate Bill 443, which, as Senator Jackson describes, aims to prevent further displacement of vulnerable families and keep pets with the families who love them by incentivizing pet-inclusive housing through the creation of a tax credit. The Humane Rescue Alliance honors more than 150 years of commitment to protecting animals, supporting families, and advocating for positive change to create a world where all animals can thrive. Located in Washington, D.C., we are the largest animal service provider in our region, touching the lives of over 100,000 animals annually through adoption, community veterinary care, and other support services, including last pet reunification. Last year, to put it in perspective, we adopted out over 4,000 animals to Maryland families. Restrictive pet rental policies increase housing insecurity and break up families. Homelessness and housing insecurity are at an unparalleled level as millions of renters became behind on rent payments due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As thousands of Marylanders face difficulty in finding safe and affordable housing for their families, restrictive rental policies for pets and high pet fees add to the barriers that renters face. According to an analysis of pet fees and rental housing published in the Frontiers in Veterinary Science Journal just last year, pet charges beyond a security deposit add to the financial barriers that low-income tenants already face when trying to find housing, and unreasonable pet fees lead to poor housing security among already disadvantaged and marginalized populations. Even when owners can't afford to pay the additional costs associated with having a pet in a rental property, policies restricting dog breed and weight effectively eliminate a large percentage of family dogs from living in most rental units. According to a survey of 551 owner-operators in urban and suburban settings, while 76% consider themselves to be pet-friendly, just 8% of rental housing is free of pet restrictions, with breed and weight restrictions being the most common. Weight restrictions for dogs in the rental housing world average between 25 and 45 pounds, which means many of the most popular family dogs, from Labradors to Golden Retrievers, are excluded from properties with these arbitrary limits. Looking at our shelter population in context, earlier this week, we had 54 dogs in our care awaiting adoption. 11 are under 45 pounds. 1 is under 25. With that, I will just wrap up my testimony to indicate, as the senator said, we do see these animals come to our shelters as a result, and this is breaking up families, taking away the ability for everyone to have access to the benefits of the human-animal bond. And respectfully, we don't believe that anyone should have to make the devastating choice between their pet and a home. So, thank you.
Very good. Questions? Senator Zucker?
Well, thank you very much. Senator, if you want to get back to me on this, do you define pet, like can it apply to any animal, or is it?
I think that we probably would, we would like to see a definition improved in the legislation. I don't think there is one, but we would be comfortable making it dogs and cats if it's unclear.
It's fine.
And if I could ask, how did you, if you didn't say already, I apologize if I didn't hear, how did you come up with the $200? I mean, what's magic about that?
I don't know if I think that
the next panel
will be discussing that a little bit further.
Okay, great, perfect.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Ms. Devin Dangle, Ms. Flory. Nice to see you.
Hello, my name is Katie Flory, and I am the Community Care and Advocacy Director for the Maryland SPCA. I'm also here today representing the PAWS, which is Professional Animal Workers Society, and I am also a private landlord. I have also submitted written testimony, so I'm not going to go through all of the data. I really want to tell you a story. Through my 17 years in working with the Maryland SPCA, I've come across family after family, phone call after phone call from people who are struggling to keep their pets and find places to live that will allow them to have those pets. Last summer in Baltimore City, there was a large explosion, which many of you might remember, on Reisterstown. A number of families were displaced, but it wasn't just the families, it was the pets as well. And there are many organizations out there that are ready to jump in and help those families, meaning the people, but they don't always remember the pets. Our organization took in several of those pets and housed them for about 2 months until the families were able to find new places to live. It should have been a couple of days, but unfortunately, because there was not enough pet-friendly housing around our state, it wasn't as easy for them. And if you can put yourself in their shoes and think to yourself, wow, I just lost my home, I just lost everything I own, and now I can't have my pet with me either, who for many people in our state, in fact, 49% of Marylanders have pets. I lost that family member for a while too. Please provide a favorable report for this bill, and also think about it from the barrier perspective. There's so many barriers right now for people in our state in finding homes and finding easy ways to find pet-friendly housing. This is an easy one. Let's bring these barriers down and help people find the homes that they need and be able to keep their pets. And then also from the landlord perspective, it's a win-win. It incentivizes having those pets in homes, but also people finding new rentals that maybe they couldn't find before. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Bevan Dangle. I'm the State Director for the Humane Society of the United States, here in support of Senate Bill 443. And I do want to draw your attention, Healthcare for the Homeless has also provided written testimony. They were unable to testify in person today, but they and several other housing advocates are in strong support of this bill because of the barriers that you've heard. So this is, being brought to you by the animal community, but in combination with the housing community. I do want to use my time to speak directly to the fiscal note and the excellent question from the chair. When we worked with the senator and our House sponsor to help craft this bill, our goal was a short-term infusion of tax credit that would incentivize what we hope will be a permanent and lasting change. We believe that as property owners shift over to being pet-friendly, they'll see the benefits of having individuals who stay longer, who are more loyal and so happy and grateful to be in one of these very limited pet-friendly housing, that it really ends up being a more stable tenant for the landlords as well. So we tried to craft legislation that would be timely, that was time constrained, and that would not have an excessively high fiscal note. So I will admit a bit of shock and horror when we saw what the fiscal note came back with. We felt keeping it at 200 and capping the total credit would meet this very immediate need, short-term infusion, again, to incentivize permanent change in our housing market. We are very open to continued conversations with this committee about ways to potentially cap maybe the number of applicants per jurisdiction, other solutions that would help make it palatable. We understand that, the state's fiscal situation is not unconstrained, but this is a critical effort that helps landlords, it helps owners, and it helps your shelters. And as you're considering this legislation, we strongly urge you to also be thinking about the cost savings. In the testimony you have from PAWS, the written testimony they provided, they estimate, at least at the Talbot County shelter as a random example, to house a dog for a month is about $200 to $300. So if you are bringing in these surrendered pets solely because the individuals cannot find housing, that's a cost burden on our counties that this tax credit would hopefully alleviate. So while that cost savings isn't, expressly set out in the fiscal note, it's an important one for this committee to keep in mind. We are comfortable with the comptroller's request to shift it from award to claim, and we are comfortable with defining pet as cats and dogs. Thank you. We urge support for Senate Bill 443.
Thanks. Yeah. My question, I guess, was I was really trying to figure out is there, $200, I wasn't sure that was enough incentive, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Have you, of course, I saw the fiscal note too, so obviously we have to be concerned about that, but was there any information from around the country that others might have done this and sort of proven a point, a dollar point that might actually lead to a significant incentive?
Both excellent questions. To the $200, it is per unit. So one thing we truly want to be incentivizing, property owners who have multiple units and really trying to reach into the lower income property owners where we see the greatest barrier. So the one reason for that 200 was if you have multiple units that you all make pet friendly, it would compound itself, and that's why it's capped at the 2,000. So it is trying to understand the fiscal constraints of the state, and then also trying to make sure that we're getting these multi-unit providers interested. We agree, we'd love to see it higher, and we would certainly be happy with any, efforts by this committee to increase that, to make sure this is truly a tantalizing credit. What we're seeing across the country is more of a stick approach, to be completely honest. States like Texas have introduced legislation prohibiting excessive pet rents. However, we were very conscious of the need to be able to move quickly, given the potential threat of the wave of evictions post-COVID. So that's why we went with an incentive approach. So we didn't have a lot of models to draw from.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Senator King. Senate Bill 448.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This committee is well aware of the importance of our public libraries, and I'd like to give you a few statistics. In FY 2020, our Maryland libraries circulated over 44 million items, had over 17 million library visits, and facilitated over 5 million reference transactions. Once the pandemic hit, libraries increased e-material holdings by 32% to provide remote access to books and information. They provided over 10,000 hours of contactless service, including material pickup, printing, and reference services. They saw a 13% increase in circulation of e-books and other downloadable materials, and they had over 63,000 patrons reach out for contactless service. My last statistic is this: there are well over 3 million registered library users, and we are nearing 60% of the population of Maryland holding library cards. All of these statistics just drive home the importance of our libraries to Marylanders and the importance of keeping them operational. Senate Bill 448, with amendments, will give our local libraries and regional resource centers a much-needed increase in funding over 4 fiscal years, beginning with FY 2024. Our libraries are facing real fiscal challenges, and now more than ever, we need our libraries, and now more than ever, they need our help. And I have one amendment that I'm going to offer to correct a drafting error, and I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 448. And, Mr. Chairman, I might just add, I know the governor does not like mandates and has already spoken up about not wanting to support this bill because it tells him that it has to be funded. But these libraries are really important, and I think this is something that deserves a real, the governor's attention and our attention. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. You've got a panel, I see.
I do.
Somebody I recognize. Tanya, good to see you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am Tonya Akins, President and CEO of Howard County Library System, requesting a favorable report with amendments for SB 448, Education, Regional Resource Centers, and Libraries funding. This bill will extend per capita increases for regional resource centers and public libraries through fiscal '27. These funding increases help sustain the important work being done in your local communities, especially as libraries recover from the pandemic. Howard County Library System continues to play a critical role in addressing the digital divide for the approximately 3,300 households in the county without broadband internet access. Our laptop and hotspot lending program enables disconnected adults and seniors to gain access to digital lifelong learning resources, gainful employment, health information, and access to civic and cultural participation. Our role is just as critical in providing supports to the more than 57,000 K-12 students served by our library. Howard County Library System provides every student an A+ student account, giving them access to books and ebooks, free online homework help, and online resources for assignments, and out-of-school learning. We are committed and intentional about reducing barriers to learning for everyone. Aligned with the Building Lifelong Learners Act, we instituted fine-free borrowing for customers of all ages. We know how much our community needs and relies on its library. During the pandemic, use of ebooks increased 71%, and we filled an average of 1,700 contactless pickup requests every single day. We lent sewing machines to aid in the production of masks and gowns. We created COVID-19 web portals with resources around food, mental health resources, unemployment, housing, and utilities, business resources related to the pandemic, and general help. Our COVID-19 response also included partnering to distribute over 2 million pounds of food from library parking lots and growing over 411 pounds of produce in our Miller Branch Enchanted Garden. We donated that food to the Howard County Food Bank. We are, every single library across this state, the center of community culture, enhancing lives in myriad ways every day. We respectfully ask for a favorable report and your full support for SB 448. Thank you.
Thank you. John Vendetta?
Vendetta, yes. John Vendetta, I'm the director of the Eastern Shore Regional Library, one of the 3 regional resource centers in Maryland. And of course, I clearly am looking for a favorable report. One of the things I'd like to do, there's always confusion about what a regional resource center in Maryland is. So there are 3 regional resource centers. We exist to serve our rural member libraries, and let's quote from the law, provide through mutual cooperation and coordination books, information, and other material and service resources that an individual library cannot provide adequately by itself. Of the 14 library systems supported by a regional resource center, 9 of these counties are ranked in the lower half of Maryland counties in per capita income. This means that many of the counties we support must make difficult funding decisions that ultimately impact a library's local funding. The regional resource centers in Maryland strategically leverage our funding in order to free up precious dollars for the member library systems. Much of this is done using economies of scale. Excuse me. For instance, purchasing subscription databases, streaming media, and network connectivity hardware at the regional level. Another example of what we do, each of the 3 regional resource centers manages, purchases, and maintains the region-wide integrated library system, which is the library's online catalog and transaction database. That is a key to a library's services, and it's a major operating cost. The annual maintenance for the Eastern Shore's 8-county ILS in FY22 was $159,000 just for maintenance on the product. Another strategy that we use to help our member libraries is partnering with the Maryland State Library for federal grants. Eastern Shore Regional Resource Center is currently managing an ARPA grant of $100,000 to develop facilities master plans for the Eastern Shore libraries as well as St. Mary's County Library. These costly facilities plans are required in order for a library system to request capital grants. Additionally, during COVID, the 3 regional resource centers distributed $244,000 in CARES funding to our member libraries for COVID-based spending, including PPE supplies and expanding internet connectivity, which I think is probably what was one of the key things that we did during COVID. Thank you, and as I repeat, looking for a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Andrea Bertzler?
Yes, thank you. I am Andrea Bertzler. I'm the Executive Director for the Carroll County Public Library, and I'm also here representing the Maryland Association of Public Library Administrators, asking for a favorable report for Senate Bill 448. This bill is intended to ensure that Maryland's 24 public libraries and their regional resource centers have sustained funding for the coming fiscal years, so they can continue to provide information and educational needs for their communities. Communities throughout Maryland depend on their public libraries. They depend on them for a myriad of services, programs, and resources. In times of crisis, such as the ones we have experienced in the last 2 years, libraries have become more important than ever. Beyond being a place where individuals borrow items to read, listen, or view, they are community hubs. Libraries across the state provide test kits and masks, serve as vaccine clinic locations, expanded their Wi-Fi signals to allow people to connect to the internet. They engaged in online programming to help people feel more connected and informed. They created pickup services to provide materials for people to safely receive books and other materials during the height of the pandemic. And they continue to serve the information needs of people across their areas. They supply workforce development training, they introduce communities to new technologies, and they provide training to help prepare the next generation workforce. The regional resource centers, as you heard, provide crucial support for Western, Southern, and Eastern Shore libraries. These areas are most at need. Of the libraries who will experience budget cuts or funding cuts from the way that the bill is currently, the funding we're currently getting this year, 8 of the 24 public libraries will see a reduced funding from the state. Of those 8 libraries, 7 are served by the regionals. They are in most need. So we ask, as a representative from MAPLA, from the Maryland Association of Public Library Administrators, for a favorable report on Senate Bill 448.
Very good. Questions from the committee? Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. All right, batting cleanup. Senator Griffith, 488. Sales and use tax medical device exemptions.
I do have a few panelists. I don't know if they're still here.
Come on down.
Yep.
Senator?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, colleagues. Melanie Griffith, Senator representing District 25 in Southern and Central Prince George's County. For the record, here and delighted to present Senate Bill 488. Many of you know that I spent much of my career outside of the General Assembly in healthcare. And last year, we spent some time focusing on health disparities as a part of the President's work group on equity and inclusion. To me, Senate Bill 488 is a wonderful extension of both my professional work and the work of the work group, because it provides another tool in the toolbox for citizens of the state of Maryland to take advantage of a tool in the toolbox to be a part of their own preventive health care. The bottom line is the bill is a tax credit. It includes thermometers, pulse oximeters, and blood pressure monitors in an exempt category along with other medical devices that would allow them to purchase, especially those with fixed incomes and medical vulnerabilities, to purchase these devices at a lower rate. And so, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. I'm so used to oops. I'm really pleased to introduce this bill. Like I said, we spent a lot of time trying to improve health care and allowing people to take care of their own health care needs and be aware of conditions that they might have early in the process versus waiting until they enter our hospital setting or other settings where they would get expensive health care. So I would ask a favorable report on Senate Bill 488 and turn it over to the panel if there are no questions.
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, I get confused with him a lot.
I'm going to leave that alone.
Ms. Elliott.
Good afternoon. This is my first in-person hearing, so I feel it's appropriate to be testifying on the value of equipment at home. I'm here today representing the Maryland Nurses Association, the Maryland Community Health System, which is a network of federally qualified health centers, and the Coordinating Center, which provides case coordination services to people who are homebound. Completely agree with Senator Griffith, and as an extension of her work on health equity, you all passed and she sponsored very important legislation last year regarding telehealth. Now, for telehealth to really work, we have to make sure that people have the equipment at home to help them monitor their own care along with their providers. And the particular types of devices that are in this bill are absolutely essential for that to work. So we would very much ask for a favorable report. We would note just in a review about how much it would cost for blood pressure cuffs. It is really anywhere in the range from $30 to over $100. So one of the things that this bill does, not only would it allow people to purchase the equipment, but it's also to purchase the equipment that works best for them. In that range of those blood pressure cuffs that I mentioned, the ones that are easier to use, particularly if you have vision problems or mobility problems, are in the higher end. And so this would allow people to purchase the equipment that works best for them. And it's supported by all the clinical evidence. There's lots of clinical evidence that shows that monitoring yourself at home along with your provider really improves health outcomes, which is, I know, something that everyone here has worked so hard to do. So we ask for a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Yes, Senator Eckert.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Would you include the smartwatches that even do an ECG?
We did not. You know, one of the things I'll say is, I was surprised at the fiscal note, even just looking at these three devices, and, you know, certainly hope to get some reevaluation of those numbers, but for each device that you expand, that would increase the fiscal impact to the state, so, yeah.
Sarah Price? Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Jackson had a question. I apologize.
Yes, I'm not sure if the sponsor or
Robin.
That's fire. Look, so I think it's a terrific piece of legislation, not only because I'm a co-sponsor, but I think, you know, right now, my family's experiencing having 24/7 coverage for my stepdad, 87 years old, and since May, these things are vital and important and can be costly if you cannot afford that. So I think this is some forward thinking, and I am certainly in support of this piece of legislation. And I think it's the older we're living, the more advanced technology and health technology is. We need to take advantage of that, but also we're living longer and we have more challenges. So this helps us. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Sarah Price?
No question.
Isn't that so?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members of the committee. My name is Sarah Price, and I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association. This is also my first in-person hearing back, and I am so happy to be here. We are here in strong support of this bill, as it will help to relieve some of the equipment costs for individuals who have respiratory or cardiac issues, or even mild COVID cases, as we are all going to have to learn to live with this illness. It will help those individuals to monitor their conditions from home. This supports the very important transition to telehealth and expands access to in-home health care for many more Marylanders, which in turn will help to relieve some of the pressure on our healthcare system, which is never more important than right now. This will
Given the increased healthcare costs that everyone is facing, this will have a positive impact on Maryland's households and on our healthcare system. And additionally, we hope that this will help to encourage supporting local businesses by motivating people to purchase these items in brick and mortar stores in their communities. So with that, we would urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Questions? Okay, thank you all very much. That concludes the hearings for today, the bill hearings.
Thank you.
We're going to begin with the subcommittee, capital subcommittee at past. 1/2 past the hour. Yep. Thank you very much.